pot stocks. Are they a buy right now? We'll go over the potential bullish case, why we think they're cheap, and the potential risks on so you know the full risk to reward. If we just look back to March 2020, I would say everything got extremely cheap and oversold. Pot stocks are getting right back to that same level. Some are even below that, like Canopy Growth Corporate CGC, and some others. They're just getting cheap. Me and Justin, we like to buy things when they're just beaten down, unloved. They're almost all 50 to 60, 70% off their highs, unloved. Who's talking about pot stocks right now? Absolutely no one. Justin, I would say the demand for pot will only continue to increase. Would you agree with that statement?
Oh, probably. And I would say that if the market takes another dump as it does in March, or as it did all of March 2020, you'd probably see demand for pot stocks increase even more, or at least for the product increase even more as people are looking to escape their woes. So, Josh, what I hear you saying is that when you look back to the market dip of March of 2020 and you look at where we're at right now, the question becomes, where do you want to allocate capital to? And ideally, probably part of that answer is going to be on something that's not overpriced or something that is maybe unloved, as you said. And what I
Absolutely.
hear you saying is that pot stocks, and let's stay with pot stocks. What I hear you saying is that the pot stocks seem to be particularly unloved, especially when you take a look at other sectors that seem to be getting a lot more love, at least since March of 2020.
It's really just, I think a lot of people were bullish last year. They were saying, well, Tilray, it's going to the moon. Everybody loved these pot stocks. They were just absolute, like, these are high volatile instruments. And if you can catch them on that down cycle, you can expect massive, massive returns just because people love to pile in the pop stocks. Young kids like myself, they like to get high. And they say, well, everyone's just going to keep on getting high. I would say Justin would agree with that statement. So, hey, people buy pot stocks, and when the news comes in, everyone just piles in. These are names kind of like the cryptos in a way, not to the same extent, but when they get hot, they get extremely hot. But they've since cooled off massively. I'm not saying I'm buying right now, and I'll go over some of the potential risks in the sector. Let's start with the regulation and taxes. These companies, they are just absolutely horrible. To put some actual numbers on this from an expert in the field, post expert, I should say, if you want to say buy weed on the street or go to the store and get it legally, you will be paying, let's say, a 100 to 200% premium to buy it at the store because these companies are forced to pay so much in taxes and regulations just to set up this business that they have to jack up the prices. So that I would say is the absolute biggest risk. So these companies just don't make money. And I like to buy things that are cash producing instruments with a catalyst that makes them extremely cheap. These stocks are cheap, but they don't quite hit that high value thing, high value stocks for me. I will point this out. San Francisco just is dropping regulations on these weed companies because they said they want to be able to compete with drug dealers. Basically, pot stocks are just absolutely fucking getting hammered. They're extraordinarily cheap when they run hot. And if you think that they have a lot of growth in the future like I do, then it could be an interesting setup. Thoughts, Justin?
I would add that the regulation, yeah, of course, it sucks because it jacks up the prices for everyone, especially if you're trying to compete with people on the street. But I would say the silver lining for regulation is that regulation basically bribes, or excuse me, regulation helps the government see as to perhaps there's a reason for letting these shops continue to exist. So I see it as kind of like a double-edged sword because the government, especially on the state level, if they're getting a significant chunk of revenue coming in taxes,
It's not that. I think that the companies will be fine, but drug dealers are they're sucking up most of the demand. And if these,
um,
so I think the main catalyst is actually San Francisco right now saying, okay, we'll drop the regulations, cut the taxes, and then these companies will actually be able to start making money. Just to
yeah,
put an example, like for a company to come in, like a pot company to come in and start a business, the amount of paperwork, filing, real, just legal bullshit that you have to do is just astronomical, making it an unwanting business for anybody. If more and more of these states decide to pull the same cutting of regulations and taxes as San Francisco does, then I think the future will just be extraordinarily bullish for the valuations and for the sentiment of these companies. All I'm saying is this is something that is on my radar that I may put a trade on.
Understood, Josh. We'll keep an eye on it.